The night was cold and quiet when Park Tae-ho saw the fire in the sky. He was sitting on the wooden porch of his lodge, drinking warm tea and watching the stars. The mountains around him were dark and silent. No cars passed on the old road below. No voices broke the peace. This was why he lived here. Far from the city, far from people, far from memories that hurt too much to carry. Tae-ho was 32 years old. He had strong hands, tired eyes, and a heart full of old wounds. Once, he had been a soldier, a good one, but that life was behind him now. These days, he ran a small mountain lodge that nobody visited. He grew vegetables, he chopped wood. He tried not to think about the past. Then the sky caught fire. At first, he thought it was a shooting star. But this light was too big, too bright, and it was falling too fast. It screamed across the darkness like an angry god, leaving a trail of orange and white flame behind it. The sound came next, a deep roar that shook the trees and made the windows of his lodge rattle. Tae-ho stood up. His teacup fell from his hand and broke on the wooden floor. He did not notice. The object crashed somewhere in the forest, maybe 2 kilometers away. The ground trembled. Birds exploded from the trees, crying in fear. Then, silence returned. Heavy and strange. A normal person would have called the police. A smart person would have stayed inside and waited for morning. But Tae-ho was not normal. And tonight, he was not smart. Something pulled at him, curiosity, instinct, or maybe just the loneliness that made him hungry for anything different. He grabbed his flashlight, put on his boots, and walked into the forest. The trees were thick, and the path was rough. Tae-ho moved carefully, stepping over roots and rocks. The smell of smoke grew stronger as he walked. Soon, he saw an orange glow between the trees. The crash site. When he finally reached it, he stopped breathing. A large metal object sat in a crater of broken trees and burned earth. It was something else entirely smooth. Oval-shaped, made of material that seemed to glow faintly silver even in the darkness. Strange symbols were carved into its surface. Smoke rose from cracks in its body. Tae-ho had seen many things in his life. War, death, pain. But he had never seen anything like this. He approached slowly, his heart beating fast. The metal was warm to the touch, but not burning. He walked around the object, looking for an opening. On the far side, he found a section of the hull had broken open during the crash, creating a jagged hole just big enough for a person to crawl through. He pointed his flashlight inside and looked. 3 bodies lay within the wreckage. At first, he thought they were dead. They were not moving, and their strange appearance made his mind struggle to understand what he was seeing. These were not humans. Their skin was pale, silver blue, smooth, and faintly shining. Their ears were long and pointed. Their hair was white as snow, falling around their faces like silk. But they were breathing. Tae-ho climbed inside carefully. The interior of the craft was damaged, panels broken, wires hanging loose, strange lights flickering weakly. He moved toward the 3 figures and knelt beside them. They were young. All of them were female, he realized. The tallest one looked like a teenager, maybe 16 years old in human terms. The second was smaller, perhaps 14. The third was just a child, no older than 10. The teenager had a deep cut on her forehead. Blood silver, not red, ran down her face. The younger 2 seemed less hurt, but were equally unconscious. Tae-ho knew he should be afraid. He knew he should run, call someone, report this to the authorities. But when he looked at these 3 strange girls, bleeding and helpless in their broken ship, he did not feel fear. He felt something he had not felt in years. He felt the need to protect. Carefully, he lifted the smallest girl first. She weighed almost nothing, light as a bird. He carried her out of the wreckage and set her gently on a patch of soft grass away from the smoke. Then he returned for the second girl, and finally, the teenager. Rain began to fall cold and heavy. Teho looked at the three unconscious aliens, then at the long path back to his lodge. It would be difficult to carry them all, especially in the rain and darkness. But difficult was not impossible. He carried them one by one, making 3 trips through the forest. By the time he brought the last girl inside his lodge, he was soaked, exhausted, and shaking from cold. But they were safe. They were warm. They were inside. He laid them on the floor near his fireplace and added more wood to the flames. Then he brought blankets, water, and his old first aid kit. He cleaned the teenager's wound as best he could. The silver blood felt strange on his fingers, thinner than human blood, almost like water, but it seemed to clot the same way. Hours passed. Teho sat in a chair, watching the 3 girls sleep. Outside, the rain continued to fall. Inside, the fire crackled and popped. He had no idea what he was doing. He had no idea who these girls were, where they came from, or why they had crashed on his mountain. He only knew that they were hurt. They were young, and they needed help. For the first time in 5 years, Teho felt useful. Near dawn, the teenager opened her eyes. They were beautiful eyes, bright gold, like sunlight through honey. But they were also filled with fear. She sat up suddenly, saw Teho, and raised her hand. Something glowed in her palm: energy, power, something dangerous. Teho did not move. He simply raised his own hands slowly, showing they were empty. "I will not hurt you," he said quietly. He knew she probably could not understand his words, but he hoped she could understand his voice. "You are safe here. I promise." The girl stared at him. The glow in her hand flickered and died. She was too weak to fight, too tired to run. Her golden eyes moved around the room, the warm fire, the blankets covering her sisters, the simple wooden walls of the lodge. Then she looked back at Teho. He saw it in her eyes the moment she decided to trust him. Just a little. Just enough. She lowered her hand and spoke in a language he could not understand. Her voice was soft and tired. Teho nodded slowly. "Rest now," he said. "We will figure everything out in the morning." The girl watched him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she lay back down and closed her eyes. Teho stayed in his chair, keeping watch through the night. Whatever was coming next, he would face it. But for now, in this small lodge, on a quiet mountain, 3 lost girls from the stars were sleeping safely, and that was enough. 3 days passed before Teho could truly speak with his guests. The first 2 days were difficult. The girls were awake, but they could not understand him, and he could not understand them. They spoke in a flowing musical language that sounded like water running over smooth stones. Teho spoke Korean, and sometimes English, but neither language meant anything to them. Still, some things do not need words. When he offered food, they understood. When he showed them where to sleep, they understood. When he smiled gently and moved slowly to show he meant no harm, they understood that too. The youngest girl recovered fastest. She was small and thin, with large silver eyes that watched everything with curiosity. On the second morning, she followed Teho around the lodge like a little shadow, touching the walls, the furniture, the cooking pots. When he handed her a cup of warm milk, she sniffed it carefully, tasted it, and then drank the whole thing in one gulp. She looked up at him with what might have been a smile. The middle girl was different. She had sharp eyes and a quick temper. When Teho came too close on the first day, she growled at him like an angry cat. But by the second day, she was the one asking questions, pointing at things and making sounds, demanding to know what everything was called: table, chair, fire, window. She repeated each word carefully, memorizing them. The oldest girl, the teenager, remained cautious. She watched Teho constantly, always keeping herself between him and her sisters. She was protecting them, he realized. She did not yet trust him completely. But she was also the one who finally fixed their communication problem. On the third morning, she approached him holding a small device. It was round and flat, about the size of a coin, made of the same silver metal as their crashed ship. Part of it was cracked, and a tiny light blinked weakly inside. The girl pointed at the device, then at her ear, then at Teho. She spoke a word in her language, and then touched the device carefully. It made a strange sound, a hum that seemed to vibrate inside Teho's head. "Can you understand me now?" the girl asked. Teho blinked. Her lips had moved in that flowing alien language, but the words that reached his ears were Korean. Clear and perfect Korean. "Yes," he said slowly. "Yes, I can understand you." The girl let out a breath of relief. "Good. The translator was damaged in the crash. I have been trying to repair it for days." She paused. "I am Yira. These are my sisters, Sena and Bora." Sena was the middle girl, the one who had been learning words. Bora was the little one who had followed him around. They both looked at Teho with wide eyes, hearing their own language for the first time since they crashed. "I am Park Teho," he said. "Where do you come from?" Yira hesitated. She looked at her sisters, then back at Teho. Finally, she spoke. "We come from very far away, a place your world does not know exists. Our home is called the Villani Sovereignty. It is an empire. Many worlds, many stars, all ruled by one throne." She paused. "Our mother sits on that throne. She is the Empress. We are her daughters. We are princesses." Teho stared at her. Princesses. From another world. From an empire of stars. He had known, of course, that these girls were not human. Their appearance made that obvious. But he had not expected this. He had not expected royalty. "Why are you here?" he asked. "Why did you crash on my mountain?" Yira's golden eyes grew dark with pain. "There was a betrayal. Generals in our military, they tried to take the throne. They attacked the palace. Our guards fought them, but there were too many. Our mother told us to run, to escape in a pod programmed to find the nearest safe world. She looked around the simple lodge. Your world, Earth, a planet so far from the trade routes that no one in the galaxy even knows it exists. Your mother," Teho said. "The Empress. Is she alive?" "I do not know." Yira's voice trembled slightly. "I hope so. She is strong. The strongest person I know, but the traitors were many. And we did not see the end of the battle. We only ran." Bora, the youngest, began to cry quietly. Sena moved close to her and held her hand. Even the sharp-tempered middle sister looked frightened. Teho felt his heart grow heavy. These were children. Lost, scared children who had watched their home fall into chaos and their mother disappear into war. "What happens now?" he asked gently. Yira straightened her shoulders, trying to look strong. "We wait. If our mother survived, she will search for us. The Villani Sovereignty has resources your world cannot imagine. Ships that can cross galaxies. Sensors that can find a single person on a planet of billions. If she is alive, she will come for us. And if she is not alive?" Yira did not answer. She did not need to. Teho nodded slowly. "Then you will stay here," he said. "Until she comes, or until we know the truth. You will stay here with me. On one. On one. Yira studied him carefully. "Why? Why would you help us? We are strangers. Aliens. You do not know us." It was a fair question. Teho thought about it for a long moment before answering. "I was a soldier once," he said finally. "I have seen war. I have seen people hurt each other. For power, for money, for stupid reasons that do not matter. I am tired of that world." He looked at the three sisters. But I also know what it means to protect something. To have a duty. Your mother gave her guards a duty to keep you safe. They died for that duty. Now that duty falls to me. Yira's eyes widened slightly. You would risk yourself for us? You do not even know what dangers might follow. Mine. Dangers. Yira's eyes. With mine. Teho shrugged. I live alone on a mountain. I have no family. No future. Nothing worth protecting. He paused. Until now. For a moment, no one spoke. The fire crackled softly. Outside, birds sang in the morning light. Then Bora, the youngest, walked forward. She stood in front of Teho, barely reaching his chest, and looked up at him with her big silver eyes. Thank you, she said softly. Thank you for saving us. Teho felt something crack inside his heart. Something that had been frozen for 5 years began to melt. He knelt down so he was at her level and gave her a small smile. You are welcome, little one. Sina crossed her arms, trying to look tough. I still do not trust you completely, she said. But you make good food. So I will stay. Despite everything, Teho laughed. Yira watched this exchange with careful eyes. Slowly, very slowly, the tension in her shoulders began to fade. She was still cautious, she would always be cautious, but something had changed. We will stay, she said finally. But you must understand something. Park Teho. Our mother is not just powerful. She is terrifying. When she comes, and she will come, she will judge you. She will decide if you helped us or harmed us. Teho stood up straight and met Yira's eyes. Then, I will make sure there is nothing to judge. I will keep you safe. All three of you. No matter what comes. Yira held his gaze for a long moment. Then, for the first time since she arrived, she gave him a small nod of respect. Very well, she said. Then we are in your care, Park Teho. And so began their strange new life together, a lonely human soldier and 3 lost princesses from the stars. Weeks turned into a month, and the mountain lodge became a home. Teho had lived alone for so long that he had forgotten what it felt like to share a meal with someone. He had forgotten the sound of laughter in his kitchen. He had forgotten how it felt to wake up in the morning with a reason to get out of bed. Now, every morning was full of noise and life. Bora would wake up first, always hungry, always eager to help with breakfast. She would stand on a small stool beside Teho and watch him cook with serious concentration. She learned the names of vegetables, meats, and spices. She learned to crack eggs without breaking the yolk. When she succeeded, she would clap her hands with joy, and Teho would feel his cold heart grow a little warmer. Sina was the curious one. She wanted to know everything about Earth, about humans, about how their strange, primitive technology worked. Why did cars need wheels? Why did phones need signals? Why did humans cook food with fire instead of energy fields? She asked 1,000 questions every day. And when Teho could not answer, she would huff in frustration and figure things out herself. She was especially fascinated by Korean food. This is amazing, she said one evening, eating her 3rd bowl of kimchi jjigae. Your planet may be primitive, but your food is the best I have ever tasted. Teho smiled. I will teach you to cook if you want. Sina's eyes lit up. Yes, teach me everything. Yira remained the serious one. She spent hours every day trying to repair their communication equipment, hoping to send a signal to their mother. She studied Earth through the small television Teho owned, learning about human history, politics, and culture. She was quiet during meals, always thinking, always worrying. But even Yira began to change. One afternoon, Teho found her sitting on the porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and orange. He sat down beside her without speaking. It is beautiful, Yira said softly. Why not? Teho asked. Because it is so small, so young, so simple. She paused. The Vallani have seen 1,000 worlds. Cities made of crystal. Ships that sail between stars like fish swim in water. Tejo said nothing. He simply watched the sunset with her until the stars appeared. Days later, Bora started calling him Samshon. He had not been anyone's uncle in 5 years, not since his sister died and took her children with her in that terrible accident. He did not cry. But that night, when everyone was asleep, he sat alone by the fire and let himself remember. He had failed his sister. He had been overseas, serving in the military, when the accident happened. He had not been there to protect her. He had not been there to save her children. The guilt had followed him ever since, a shadow that never left. But now, watching these 3 alien girls sleep peacefully in his home, he felt something shift inside him. He could not change the past. He could not bring back the family he had lost. But he could protect this new family, this strange, unexpected family that had fallen from the sky. He would not fail again. As the weeks passed, strange things began to happen in the world outside. Tejo saw it first on the news. Reports of unusual satellite activity. Strange signals detected from deep space. Governments around the world were confused and frightened, though they tried to hide it. Then he noticed the drones. Small flying objects, almost invisible, hovering at the edge of his property. He spotted them during his morning walks, quick flashes of movement that disappeared when he looked directly at them. Someone was watching, he told Yira that night. Her face grew pale. The Ku faction, she whispered. They must have tracked our escape pod. They know we are here. Who are they? Tejo asked. Military generals who wanted to take my mother's throne. They believe the Vallani sovereignty has grown weak under her rule. They want war, expansion, conquest. Yira's hands trembled. If they find us before our mother does, they will use us as hostages, or kill us. It depends on whether we are more useful, alive, or dead. Tejo's jaw tightened. They will not touch you. You do not understand, Yira said. These are not ordinary soldiers. They have technology. Your world cannot fight. Weapons that can destroy cities. Shields that can stop any bullet. One soldier from the Ku faction could defeat your entire army. Tejo was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up. Come with me, he said. He led Yira outside, around the back of the lodge, to a place where the ground was covered with old leaves. He brushed the leaves aside, revealing a metal door hidden in the earth. I built this years ago, he said. After I left the military, I was not well. I thought enemies were everywhere. I built this bunker to hide from the world. He opened the door. Inside was a small underground room, reinforced with concrete and steel. There was enough food and water for weeks. There were blankets, lights, and a small radio. If anything happens, Tejo said, you take your sisters and hide here. Do not come out until I tell you it is safe. Yira stared at the bunker, then at Tejo. And what will you do? Thanks for watching. Tejo's eyes were hard. I will handle it. You cannot fight them. Maybe, Tejo admitted. But I was a soldier. I know how to fight. I know this mountain better than anyone. And I know that running is not always the answer. He looked at Yira. Sometimes, you have to stand and fight for the things you love. Yira's golden eyes searched his face. She saw no fear there. Only determination. You are strange, Park Tejo, she said quietly. Most beings would run from danger. Most beings would save themselves first. But you would die for 3 girls you have only known for a month. Tejo shrugged. I told you. I have nothing else worth protecting. Nothing except you 3. Yira was silent for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed. A deep, formal bow, the kind of bow that a princess of the Vallani sovereignty would give only to someone she truly respected. Thank you, she said. Whatever happens next, I will not forget what you have done for us. Teho placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Save your thanks for later. We are not out of danger yet. Staff. That night, he stayed awake, watching the darkness outside his window. Somewhere out there, enemies were coming. Powerful enemies with technology beyond his understanding, but he had faced death before. He had walked through fire and survived. He was just one man against an empire. But sometimes, one man was enough. He checked his old rifle, cleaned his hunting knife, and prepared for war. The princesses were sleeping peacefully behind him. He would keep them safe, no matter the cost. The attack came on a cold morning, 3 days after Teho saw the drones. He had gone to the small town at the base of the mountain to buy supplies. Rice, vegetables, medicine, simple things that the girls needed. The town was quiet as always, a forgotten place where old people lived slow lives, and nothing exciting ever happened. But today, something was different. Teho noticed them immediately. 3 figures standing at the edge of town, near the old bus stop. They were tall, taller than any human, and they wore long, dark coats that hid their bodies. Their faces were hidden behind smooth masks that reflected light like mirrors. They were not human. Teho did not panic. He had been a soldier for too long to panic. Instead, he walked calmly to the small grocery store, bought his supplies, and left through the back door. He moved quickly through the narrow streets, staying out of sight, watching the figures from the corners of his eyes. They were looking for something. Scanning the town with devices he could not see. Hunting for the princesses. Teho did not return to the main road. Instead, he took the old forest path, the one that only locals knew. It was longer, but safer. He moved fast, his military training returning to his body like an old friend. He reached the lodge in less than an hour. "We have to go," he said the moment he walked through the door. Now, Yira's face went white. She understood immediately. They are here. 3 of them. In the town. Teho grabbed supplies. Food, water, the medical kit. Take your sisters to the bunker. Do not come out until I tell you. What about you? Sina demanded. You cannot fight them alone. I do not plan to fight them. I plan to slow them down. Teho checked his rifle and loaded extra ammunition into his pockets. If they are busy with me, they cannot search for you. That is suicide, Yira said sharply. I told you one of their soldiers could. I know what you told me. Teho's voice was calm but firm. But I also know this mountain. I know every rock, every tree, every shadow. They are stronger than me, faster than me. But this is my ground. And on my ground, I am not easy to kill. Bora ran forward and grabbed his arm. Her silver eyes were full of tears. Teho knelt down and placed his hands on her shoulders. Listen to me, little one. Sometimes, protecting people means standing between them and danger. That is what I am doing. I am standing between you and the bad people who want to hurt you. But what if you die? Bora whispered. Teho smiled gently. Then I will die knowing I protected the people I love. And that is a good death. He looked at Yira and Sina. Take her. Go. Now. Yira grabbed Bora and pulled her toward the back door. Sena hesitated, her eyes burning with anger and fear. Come back, she said fiercely. You have to come back. You promised to teach me how to make kimchi. Despite everything, Teho laughed. The sisters disappeared into the forest, heading toward the hidden bunker. Teho watched them go until they were out of sight. Then, he turned toward the front of the lodge and prepared for war. The soldiers arrived an hour later. Teho watched them from his hiding spot in the trees, about 100 meters from the lodge. They moved like ghosts. Silent. Coordinated. Deadly. Their long coats were gone now, revealing sleek armor that seemed to absorb light. They carried weapons that glowed with soft blue energy. They entered the lodge first, searching every room. When they found it empty, one of them spoke into a device on his wrist. The words were in that flowing alien language, but Tejo did not need to understand them to know what they meant. The targets are not here. Search the area. The three soldiers spread out, moving into the forest in different directions. Tejo smiled grimly. Perfect. He had set traps throughout the forest during his years of paranoid isolation. Pits covered with leaves, tripwires connected to falling logs, snares that could catch a leg and hold it tight. He had never expected to actually use them, until now. The first soldier walked straight into a pit trap. The ground collapsed beneath him, and he fell 3 meters into a hole filled with sharpened wooden stakes. He screamed a high, inhuman sound, and then went silent. One down. The other 2 soldiers reacted instantly. They stopped moving and raised their weapons, scanning the forest with glowing sensors. They were no longer hunting blindly. They knew an enemy was here. Tejo did not give them time to think. He burst from his hiding spot and fired his rifle at the nearest soldier. The bullet hit the soldier's armor and bounced off harmlessly, but the impact made the soldier stumble. Tejo was already moving, running through the trees, leading them away from the bunker. The soldiers chased him. They were faster than him. Much faster. But the forest was thick, and the ground was uneven. They had to dodge trees and rocks, while Tejo knew every path, every shortcut, every hidden trail. He led them toward a narrow cliff overlooking a river. As he ran, he grabbed a rope he had tied to a tree years ago and swung himself across a wide gap. The soldiers could not follow. They tried to jump, but the distance was too far. They landed on the other side, still alive but separated from him. Tejo used the moment to reload his rifle. The second soldier tried to circle around, climbing down the cliff to reach him. Tejo was waiting. He fired 3 shots at close range, not at the armor, but at the joints where the armor was thin. One bullet found its mark. The soldier fell, clutching his knee, silver blood pouring from the wound. 2 down. The third soldier was smarter. He did not chase. He waited. Tejo moved through the forest carefully, trying to find him. But this soldier was a hunter too. A predator who knew how to wait for prey. The attack came from above. The soldier dropped from a tree and landed on Tejo like a falling rock. They rolled across the ground together, fighting desperately. The soldier was stronger, impossibly strong, and his armored hands closed around Tejo's throat. Tejo could not breathe. The world began to darken at the edges. He was going to die. Then he heard a voice. Stop. Light exploded through the forest, golden, brilliant, powerful. The soldier flew backward, thrown by an invisible force. He hit a tree and crumpled to the ground. Yira stood at the edge of the clearing, her hand raised, her golden eyes blazing with power. Energy crackled around her body like lightning. Do not touch him, she said, her voice cold as ice. The soldier looked up and froze. Recognition flashed across his face, even behind his mask. He knew who she was. He knew he was looking at royalty, but recognition turned to hatred. Little princess, he growled. You cannot hide forever. The empire will fall. And you will. He never finished the sentence. Tejo, bruised and bleeding but still alive, drove his hunting knife through the gap in the soldier's neck armor. The soldier shuddered once, and then went still. Silence fell over the forest. Tejo collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. His body screamed with pain. His vision was blurry, but he was alive. Yira ran to him and caught him before he fell completely. Samchon. That word uncle in her voice. When had she started calling him that too? I told you, Tejo said weakly, to stay in the bunker. I could not. Yira said, tears running down her silver-blue cheeks. I could not let you die for us. Footsteps approached. Sina and Bora appeared, running through the trees. When Bora saw Tejo covered in blood, she screamed. He is alive, Yira said quickly. He is alive. Help me carry him. Together, The three princesses lifted the human soldier who had fought an impossible battle for them. They carried him back to the lodge, step by step, refusing to let him fall. Teho drifted in and out of consciousness. But through the pain and darkness, one thought kept him anchored. He had won. The princesses were safe, and he was still alive to protect them. Teho woke to the sound of crying. He opened his eyes slowly. Everything hurt. His throat burned where the soldier had choked him. His ribs ached. His head pounded. But he was lying on something soft, his own bed, he realized, and bandages covered his wounds. Bora was sitting beside him, tears streaming down her face. When she saw his eyes open, she grabbed his hand and held it tight. "Samshon," she sobbed. "You are awake. You are awake." "How long?" Teho asked. His voice was rough, like broken glass. "2 days," Yira said from the doorway. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her golden eyes. "We used emergency medical supplies from our pod. Your injuries were severe, but you will recover." Sina stood behind Yira, unusually quiet. Her sharp eyes were red from crying. "You almost died," she said. "You stupid, brave, stubborn human. You almost died." Teho tried to smile. "But I did not. This time," Yira said quietly. "You did not die this time." Teho slowly sat up, ignoring the pain that shot through his body. He looked at the 3 girls, these 3 alien princesses, who had become his family, and felt a strange peace settle in his chest. "The soldiers," he said. "Did you—" "We destroyed their ship," Yira said. "It was hidden a few kilometers from here. Without it, they cannot call for reinforcements. But," she hesitated, "the battle was loud. Their disappearance will be noticed. More will come. And next time, they will send more soldiers. Better soldiers." Teho nodded slowly. He had expected this. One victory meant nothing against an empire. "Then we need to—" He stopped. The windows of the lodge had gone dark. Not dark like night. Dark like something was blocking the sun itself. Everyone looked up. Through the window, Teho saw something impossible. A shadow was falling over the mountain, a shadow cast by something enormous, something that filled the sky from horizon to horizon. A ship the size of a city, descending through the clouds. Yira's face went white. Then, slowly, it transformed, with emotion, shock, hope, fear, joy, all mixed together. "Mother." The Villani sovereignty had arrived. The next hour was chaos. Around the world, governments panicked. Military forces mobilized. Television stations broadcast emergency warnings. People looked up at the sky and saw their worst fears come true. Aliens were real, and they had arrived with a ship that could crush entire nations beneath its shadow. But the ship did not attack. It simply hovered, silent and patient, directly above the Korean peninsula. Then a smaller craft detached from the great ship and descended toward the mountains. Toward the lodge. Toward them. Teho forced himself to stand. Every muscle screamed in protest, but he ignored the pain. He grabbed his jacket and walked to the front door. "What are you doing?" Yira asked, alarmed. "Meeting them," Teho said. "They are coming for you. They should see that you are safe. You should stay inside. You are injured. Mother will. Your mother will judge me," Teho said quietly. "You told me this yourself. She will decide if I helped you or harmed you. I would rather meet that judgment standing on my feet than hiding in my bed." He walked outside before anyone could stop him. The shuttle landed in the open field in front of the lodge. It was beautiful and terrifying. Sleek, silver, metal, covered in those same strange symbols he had seen on the crashed escape pod. The hull opened like a flower, revealing a ramp of pure light. Figures emerged. First came soldiers not like the rough coup soldiers, but elite guards, in gleaming white armor. They moved with perfect discipline, forming two lines on either side of the ramp. Their weapons were visible but not raised. Then came servants, or perhaps advisors, dressed in flowing robes of deep blue and silver. They bowed their heads as they walked. And finally, she emerged, Empress Halen of the Villani sovereignty. She was tall, taller than Teho, taller than any human woman he had ever seen. Her skin was the same silver blue as her daughter's, but her presence was completely different. She radiated power like the sun radiated heat. Her eyes were not gold like Yura's but deep violet, and they seemed to see through everything, through walls, through armor, through lies. Her hair was pure white, flowing behind her like a river of moonlight. She wore armor that was both functional and beautiful, covered in gems that pulsed with inner light. A crown of silver thorns rested on her head. She was beautiful. She was terrifying. She was a goddess walking among mortals, and she was staring directly at Teho. Before anyone could speak, the lodge door burst open. Yura, Senna, and Bora ran past Teho and threw themselves at the Empress. For a moment, just a moment, the terrifying ruler of 1,000 worlds disappeared, replaced by a mother who had thought she lost her children. Halen fell to her knees and wrapped her arms around all three of them. She held them tight, silver tears streaming down her face. She spoke in her native language, words too soft and private for translation, and her daughters answered with sobs and laughter and joy. Teho watched silently. He understood this moment. The love of a parent for their child, the fear of loss, the relief of reunion. He had felt it once, long ago, with his own family. Before the accident took them away. After a long moment, Empress Halen stood. She kept her hands on her daughter's shoulders, unwilling to let them go completely. But her violet eyes turned to Teho. The warmth disappeared from her face like ice returning to a frozen lake. You, she said. Her voice was cold, deep, and carried across the field like thunder. You are the human who kept my daughters. Teho met her gaze without flinching. His heart was pounding, but he refused to show fear. Yes, he said. I am. Halen studied him. Her eyes moved over his body, the bandages, the bruises, the exhaustion written on his face. She noted everything. My scouts found 3 dead soldiers from the traitor faction in your forest, she said. Their armor was damaged. One fell into a pit. One was shot. One had his throat cut by a blade. She paused. You did this? Yes. Alone? Teho hesitated. He glanced at Yura, who looked terrified. She had used her powers to save him. Powers that were probably meant to stay hidden. Mostly alone, he said carefully. Your daughter helped at the end. Halen's eyes flickered to Yura, then back to Teho. She said nothing, but something shifted in her expression. A hint of curiosity. Behind the ice. You fought 3 soldiers of the traitor faction, she said slowly. 3 trained warriors with technology beyond your comprehension. You are a primitive human from a primitive world. You should be dead. Teho shrugged. I have been told that before. Halen did not smile, but something in her eyes changed. Take him, she said to her guards. Before Teho could react, armored hands grabbed his arms. The princesses cried out in protest. Mother, no, Yura shouted. He saved us. He protected us. Please. Bora sobbed. Do not hurt Samshan. Halen raised one hand. And her daughters fell silent. I will not hurt him, she said calmly. I will judge him. There is a difference. She looked at Teho with those terrifying violet eyes. Bring him to my ship. I wish to understand exactly what manner of creature chose to protect my children. The guards pulled Teho toward the shuttle. He did not resist. What was the point? Against an empire that spanned galaxies, resistance was meaningless. But as he was led away, he turned his head and looked at the 3 princesses one last time. It will be okay, he said. Trust me. Yira's golden eyes were full of tears, but she nodded. And then Teho was taken aboard the shuttle. The door closed behind him, and he rose into the sky to meet his judgment. The inside of the great ship was beyond anything Teho could have imagined. Corridors stretched endlessly in every direction, made of that same silver metal that seemed to glow with inner light. Thousands of crew members moved through the halls, soldiers, officers, workers, all of them silver blue-skinned. All of them staring at Teho as he was marched past them, a human, on the flagship of the Villani sovereignty. He must have seemed like an insect to them, a strange, primitive creature from an unknown world. Yet here he was, being escorted by elite guards to meet their Empress personally. They brought him to a great hall, a throne room, perhaps, though it looked nothing like the ones in human history books. The ceiling was so high, it disappeared into shadow. The walls were lined with screens showing images of stars, planets, and ships. And at the center of it all was a raised platform where Empress Halen sat upon a throne of crystal and light. She had changed from her armor into flowing robes of deep violet, matching her eyes. Her crown still rested on her head. She looked every bit the ruler of 1,000 worlds. Beside the throne stood her 3 daughters, now dressed in clean royal garments. Yira wore blue. Sena wore green. Bora wore soft pink. They looked like princesses should look beautiful, elegant, powerful, but their eyes were filled with worry as they watched Teho approach. The guards stopped him at the base of the platform and forced him to his knees. Teho did not resist. He simply looked up at the Empress and waited. Halen studied him for a long moment. Her violet eyes seemed to pierce through his skin, looking at something deeper. "Park Teho," she said. Her voice echoed through the hall. "Citizen of Earth, former soldier, mountain lodge owner, no family, no connections, no reason to risk yourself for strangers from another world." She paused. "Yet you did." "Yes," Teho said simply. "Why?" Teho considered the question. He could give a simple answer, because it was the right thing to do. But he sensed that this Empress wanted more than simple answers. "Because they needed help," he said finally. "Because they were children. Because I was once a soldier, and soldiers protect the innocent." He paused. "And because I had nothing left to lose." Halen's eyes narrowed slightly. "Nothing left to lose. That is an interesting phrase. It suggests you have already lost everything worth protecting." "I have." "Tell me." It was not a request. It was a command. But Teho found himself answering anyway. 5 years ago, I had a family. A younger sister. Her husband. Their 2 children, a boy and a girl, 5 and 7 years old. His voice was steady, but each word carried the weight of old grief. There was an accident. A car crash. I was overseas, serving in the military. By the time I received the news, they were already gone. The throne room was silent. I blamed myself. Teho continued. I thought that if I had been there, I could have saved them. I could have driven them instead. I could have done something. But I was not there. And so I came home, left the military, and hid myself on a mountain where I would not have to see anyone or care about anyone ever again. He looked directly at the Empress. Then your daughters fell from the sky. 3 young girls, lost and scared and hurt. And I saw my niece and nephew in their eyes. I saw a chance to do what I failed to do before, to protect someone, to not fail again. Halen said nothing for a long moment. Her violet eyes held something that might have been understanding, or might have been judgment. I see, she said finally. Your pain gave you purpose. Your guilt gave you courage. She stood from her throne and descended the steps slowly until she stood directly in front of Teho. But words are easy. I need to see the truth. Before Teho could ask what she meant, Halen reached out and placed her hand on his forehead. Pain, light, memory. Everything hit him at once. A flood of images and emotions that were his own, but also not his own. He felt the Empress inside his mind, moving through his memories like a ghost through walls. She saw everything. She saw the night he found the crashed pod, the fear in his heart, the choice he made to help instead of run. She saw the days that followed, the meals he cooked, the lessons he taught, the patience he showed. She saw Bora calling him Samshon for the first time, and the tears he had hidden. She saw Sina's frustration and curiosity, and how he answered every question without complaint. She saw Yira's slow trust growing, and the respect he gave her in return. She saw his sister's face, his niece's laughter, his nephew's smile, the graves he visited every year on the anniversary of their death. She saw the battle in the forest, the traps, the gunfire, the knife in his hand, and the blood on his skin. She saw him choose to die rather than let enemies reach the girls. She saw everything, and then she withdrew. Teho gasped and nearly collapsed. His body shook from the experience. His mind felt raw, exposed, like a wound that had been torn open. But when he looked up, he saw something unexpected. Empress Halen was looking at him with different eyes. The ice was gone. In its place was something warmer, something almost like respect. "You are unusual," she said softly. "For a primitive species. Your kind barely knows the stars exist. You fight with weapons made of metal and fire. You live short lives on a single small world. And yet—" She paused. "Well, and you," she paused. "You have something that many in my empire have forgotten." "What is that?" Teho asked, his voice rough. "Genuine kindness, selfless courage, love without conditions." Halen turned and looked at her daughters. "My children have been surrounded by power their entire lives. Servants who obey because they must. Advisors who speak carefully because they fear punishment. Guards who protect them because it is their duty." She looked back at Teho. "But you protected them because you chose to. Because you saw 3 frightened girls and decided they were worth your life." Teho said nothing. He did not know what to say. "Mother," Yira spoke up, her voice trembling. "Please. He is a good man. He saved us. He fought for us when no one else could help. Do not punish him." "I will not punish him," Halen said. Her voice carried through the hall, and something in her tone made everyone, guards, servants, daughters, straighten with attention. She turned to address not just Teho but the entire throne room. "This human has shown more courage and honor than many who claim to serve the sovereignty. He fought impossible enemies with primitive weapons and won. He protected my daughters at the cost of his own blood. He asked nothing in return." Halen drew a deep breath. "I have ruled the Villani sovereignty for 200 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have judged countless beings across 1,000 worlds. And I tell you now, this man is worthy of the highest honor we can give." She looked directly at Teho. "You have earned more than your life, Park Teho. You have earned the eternal gratitude of the throne." From behind the throne, Sina let out a cry of relief. Bora burst into happy tears. Even Yira, always so controlled, allowed a smile to break across her face. Teho looked at the 3 princesses, his strange, wonderful, impossible family, and felt something he had not felt in 5 years. "Hope, what happens now?" he asked quietly. Empress Halen's violet eyes held his gaze. "Now, we discuss your future, and the future of your world." She extended her hand to help him stand, and for the first time, Teho saw the Empress not as a terrifying ruler, but as a mother who understood what it meant to protect the ones you love. The ceremony took place in the Great Hall of the Sovereignty flagship, broadcast across 1,000 worlds. Teho stood at the center of the chamber, dressed in simple clothes he had chosen himself. The Villani had offered him robes of silk and armor of light, but he had refused. He was a human, a mountain lodge owner, a former soldier. He would accept their honor as himself, not as something he was not. Before him stood Empress Halen in full ceremonial regalia, robes of pure white, a crown that blazed with inner light, and a staff of crystal that hummed with ancient power. Behind her, Yira, Sina, and Bora stood in a line, their faces filled with pride and joy. The hall was filled with thousands of Villani officers, nobles, ambassadors from distant worlds. They had come to witness something that had not happened in over 10,000 years, the naming of an outsider as guardian of the imperial bloodline. Halen raised her staff, and silence fell across the chamber. For millennia, the Villani sovereignty has stood as a beacon of order in a chaotic galaxy, she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. We have built empires. We have conquered stars. We have believed ourselves to be the greatest civilization the universe has ever known. She paused, her violet eyes sweeping across the crowd. But greatness is not measured only in ships and weapons. It is measured in virtue, in courage, in the willingness to sacrifice oneself for others. She looked directly at Tejo. This human has shown us what true greatness means. Tejo felt every eye in the room turn toward him. He stood straight, refusing to look away. Halen descended the steps of her throne and approached him. In her hands, she carried a medallion, a circle of silver metal, with a symbol at its center. The symbol showed 3 stars arranged around a single point, like a crown. Park Tejo of Earth, Halen said formally. You protected my daughters when they were lost and afraid. You fought for them when enemies came. You nearly died to keep them safe. You asked nothing in return. She placed the medallion around his neck. It was warm against his chest, humming with gentle energy. I name you guardian of the imperial bloodline. From this day forward, you are under the personal protection of the throne. Any who threaten you, threaten the sovereignty itself. Any who honor you, honor us. The crowd erupted in applause, a strange sound, like wind through crystals, that filled the entire hall. Tejo bowed his head slightly. Thank you, Empress. But I did not do it for honor. I did it because it was right. Quote, 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 quote. Halen smiled a real smile, warm and genuine. That is exactly why you deserve it. She turned back to face the crowd. The sovereignty has learned something today. We believed Earth to be a primitive world, unworthy of our attention. We were wrong. This small planet, at the edge of an unknown galaxy, has produced a man of extraordinary virtue. She raised her staff. Therefore, I declare Earth a protectorate world of the Villani sovereignty. It shall be protected from all who would exploit its people. It shall be given time to grow and develop on its own terms. And it shall be remembered as the world that saved our princesses. Tejo felt his heart swell. This was what he had wanted, the only thing he had asked for. Protection for his world. Safety for his people. The ceremony continued with speeches and rituals he did not fully understand. But when it was finally over, the 3 princesses rushed toward him and surrounded him in a group embrace. You did it, Samshan, Bora said, her face buried in his chest. You really did it. We are so proud of you, Sina added, her voice rough with emotion. Even if you are still a stubborn, primitive human. Yira said nothing at first. She simply looked at him with her golden eyes full of gratitude and respect. Then, she spoke quietly, so only he could hear. You are family now, truly family, and family never abandons each other. Tejo hugged them all tightly. For the first time in 5 years, he did not feel the weight of his guilt pressing down on him. He did not feel alone. He had a family again. Later that day, Empress Halen called him to a private meeting in her personal chambers. The room was simpler than he expected, filled with books, paintings, and personal items that showed the woman behind the crown. You have earned anything you desire, Halen said. Name it, and it shall be yours. Teho thought for a moment. I would like to go home, he said. To my lodge on the mountain. I do not want palaces, or ships, or power. I just want to live peacefully. Halen nodded slowly. I expected you might say that. Very well. You will be returned to Earth. But know this. You will never be forgotten. And you will never be alone again. Teho bowed his head. Thank you. Empress. One more thing. Halen's voice softened. My daughters have made a request. They wish to visit Earth again. To see you. To learn more about your world. She paused. I have agreed. Teho looked up in surprise. They want to come back? They love you, Park Teho. In ways they probably do not fully understand yet. You gave them kindness when they had nothing. You gave them hope when they were afraid. Halen's violet eyes held his gaze. Do not underestimate what that means. The next day, Teho was returned to Earth. The great sovereignty ship departed, rising back into the stars until it became just another point of light in the sky. Around the world, people tried to make sense of what had happened. The alien ship, the broadcast, the new reality that humanity was not alone in the universe, but on a quiet mountain outside Busan. None of that mattered. Teho stood on his porch, drinking warm tea, watching the sun set over the peaks. His lodge was the same as it had always been. Simple, peaceful, far from the noise of the world. But he was different. The weight he had carried for 5 years was lighter now. The darkness in his heart had faded. He had found purpose again. He had found family. Months passed. Spring arrived, filling the mountains with flowers and birdsong. Teho repaired his lodge, planted his garden. One evening, as he was cooking dinner, he heard a sound he had been expecting, the soft hum of a shuttle descending through the clouds. He walked outside and watched the craft land in the open field in front of his lodge. The door opened. Bora was the first to emerge. She ran across the grass, shouting, Samshan, Samshan, at the top of her lungs, and threw herself into his arms. Teho caught her and spun her around, laughing. Sena followed, pretending to look annoyed but unable to hide her smile. I expect you to teach me that kimchi recipe this time. I am not leaving. Until I get it right. Yira came last, walking with the grace and dignity of a true princess. But when she reached Teho, she dropped all pretense and hugged him tightly. We missed you, she whispered. I missed you too, Teho replied. Then a fourth figure emerged from the shuttle. Empress Halen stepped onto Earth's soil, dressed not in royal armor but in simple traveling clothes. Without her crown and robes, she looked almost ordinary, almost human. Teho blinked in surprise. Halen walked toward him, a hint of amusement in her violet eyes. I am told, she said, her voice warm, that you make excellent kimchi jjigae. Teho stared at her for a moment. Then, despite everything, despite the impossibility of this moment, despite the vastness of the gulf between a mountain lodge owner and an empress of the stars, he laughed. It was the first real laugh he had experienced in years. Free, happy, alive. Come inside, he said. I will make extra. And so they did. That night, in a small wooden lodge on a quiet mountain, 4 alien princesses and 1 human soldier sat together around a simple table. They ate hot stew and rice. They talked and laughed and shared stories. Outside, the stars shone bright and cold, filled with empires and wars and wonders beyond imagination. But inside, there was only warmth, only family, only home. And for Park Teho, that was enough. That was everything.